3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to second session of the day. In the morning, we had an excellent session by Mr. Hasinul Sanu. Thank you, all the participants, for your very good response to the morning session. Mr. Hasinul focused in the morning session on cyber security and the opportunities in this domain. He also discussed the recent coronavirus pandemic-based cyber attack, where cyber crookers are using COVID-19 situation in 2020 to defraud people through phishing and ransomware in India and in the world. Uh, he has very well explained about pen testing, which is a simulated cyber attack against your computer system to check for exploitable vulnerabilities. In this session, he will cover cybersecurity threats and how to protect from it. Without wasting much of time, and now I request Mr. Hasinul Sanu to start his session. Over to Mr. Sanual. Sorry, over to Mr. Hasinul. Sorry.
Hi all, am I audible to all?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. And now the second sections are related to the cybersecurity threats in major areas in our daily life activity from starting from our daily life activities to to the unexpected items is where the cybersecurity attacks can taken places. And yeah, okay. So we move on. Okay, this is what we have discussed earlier. If anyone of new into the sessions, so the threats might have an interesting part here, like 5 million data records is stolen every day, or 3.86 million average data breach costs. Okay, and more than that, just remember one thing: 50 billion devices connected by 2020. So it doesn't say that which type of devices it is. Maybe it's a audio speaker. Nowadays, it's everyday speaker may have a connectivity with the internet, or any kind of things can connect into the internet. So this number is just an exceptional. It can be varies. Some of the consulting agencies, they might have think this might value have been connected by 2020. So if those devices are connected, we can also have more security threats on those devices. It's not differentiate whether these devices are like household devices or personal devices or any kind of devices. Okay. And last times I have said I will follow the sessions through from the recent attacks to learning methodologies. I think I have shared on the learning methodologies before, but I will also give a hint on learning methodologies again, so you can do a follow up on these regardings. So I'm mainly concentrating on the threats that does happens in our country or in our surroundings or in our daily lives. The devices we encode morely influenced the threats associated with the devices. Okay. Okay, so maybe within a 1 week or 2 week before, it's this happens around May 30, I think it's just reported. Some guy from India, his name is Bao Chain. He has pointed out a critical bug in Apple, the famous company. So he has earned up to a dollar around 10. It's 1 million, I think. 1 million or 1 lakh, whatever. So it is to be around 77 or 75 or 76 lakhs of Indian rupee for a one big amount of money for a single issue. But this issue is a very critical issue. That's why Apple itself has given this much of amount of money. So, and another, so this is kind of information that I want to give you out, how the companies are giving out the paychecks if they have, if you any researcher like you, or if you are upcoming researchers like you or mine. So they, if they are input their values, input their patience, input their time on searching out the issues or bugging for me, they could able to get this much of amount of money or more than that. But other than that, so we should have to enforce here those who might have used iOS devices. They might have seen this sign in with Apple IDs. So with using, he has bypassed those. Apple has known for its security, more secure than other counterparts like Android or other parts. So the impact of this one is the consumer industries. So an hacker might be he have found out this issue, since he is a legitimate ethical hacker. He mailed this issue. He respond this issue to the team with Apple, and they might fix these issues. Think of it. How many of the other hackers they might have found this and they never told to the industry, or they were not told to the particular people. So, you know, this is one of the bug that has discovered it. So there's a lot of bugs related to similar like these things are exposing over the internet. So those, this type of bugs will be called the 0 days. It's a new thing that they have published. So many governments, many other terrorist groups or whatever, they do have this kinds of, they do might have these understandings of these bugs, but they may not disclose these bugs to any other, to the respective teams or respective companies. So another one you may have uh, encountered that Indian DigiLocker account is can be accessed without a password. So what is an Indian DigiLocker account? Around 3.5 billion documents are stored in these government authorized applications. It's all about our sensitive data. So one guy is from Kerala, is one of my friend, Mohesh Mohan. He discovered this issue. He's without OTP, which OTP of another user, you can able to access into the application. You can access other personal data. So this is, there is very great findings, and this is some of the findings that Indian CERT team has acknowledged, and this kind of is a great issue. So from what we have understand these things, the threats are near to us. The threats are in front of our application, in front of our fingertips. So hackers, allied persons or allied ethical hacker like Mohesh Mohan may have disclosed this issue to the government of India, or maybe an attacker, he might not. So you have to think like that. How many of these issues are floating over the internet, over in front of our eyes, or in front of our fingertips? They might be there. Application that we have used may have some kind of issues. So this is one of the great finding, and also that this is one of the recent finding around 1 or 2 weeks before, and it was sorted out by this team. And one of the thing that WhatsApp was utilized for a spy tool. The real WhatsApp that we are be using as use WhatsApp was says that Indian journalists and activists were spied on using Israel spyware. So these spyware can be used instead of WhatsApp. So, how the researchers, the bad or elite or black hat researchers, found out this issue? They created some kind of spyware instead of WhatsApp. They have found out some bug in the WhatsApp, and they use this spy bug. to spying on different persons, spying on anybody uses on the WhatsApp. So uh, these these things is a great surveillance activities. So this you know, so these 0 days is the attackers can use this kind of information for any other purposes. Here they are used for spying the best Indian politicians or activists who are Indian or any other person. Maybe you and me. Maybe this talk can be maybe were spied. I don't know. It doesn't have any much importance on them, but literally they can spy anybody. So this is one of the last few months back old reports related to WhatsApp and the devices. See here, the Facebook, the one of WhatsApp users, they do find out an Israeli NSA spyware firm for hacking WhatsApp users. So somehow Facebook is able to find out this issue. So then only they could know these threats from these countries or it's not from a government. I think it's not, it's some private companies they use these threats to hacking people, and they sell this particular vulnerability or payload for any international terrorist groups or any governments who are interested to surveillance their people. Okay, we have to worry about it. And we were mentioning in the first session that some rogue Android app has camera access without permission. I'm really enforcing of all of you, including myself, whenever we go through installing a particular application, either it is to be a camera filter application or it is to be some kind of you know gaming applications, we have this to uh, go through the like that we should have this to find check what are the permissions this particular app requires. Maybe was mentioned before, like even a diary symbol diary app or a calculator app does require the permission of a microphone. Why the hell they require these things, these permissions? So you have to better care about the application that you are installed in your mobile phones. So these may sometimes may have the camera access, and without our knowledge, without the user victim knowledge, the and any attacker from other world from any other part can own the cameras, can work the cameras, like they can do that. They can start our cameras without and its UI, whatever the camera UI will not be visible to us. Someone can visible our private movements. Everything can be done using these things. And one of the important thing, most of our Android phones just uses the Qualcomm chips. So Qualcomm chips has some flaws that recently some of the researchers have found out, and hackers can steal the private data from Android devices. Nowadays, we Android devices just use its own encryption techniques. They do have a certain kind of hardware in the chips that does have some encryption capabilities of your passwords, your encryption keys. So these areas, the trusted platform areas, that can be stealed from some of the Qualcomm, some variant of the Qualcomm chips. This was discovered. So we will also think about it, how way on what sectors, on which areas is the attackers or attack does happens. Before that, we do see the Android application. Here in Qualcomm chips, we able to understand that the attack can be happen inside a hardware. You got it. Inside a hardware, the attack could be happens. So inside the chip, it could be happens. So we don't know exactly how the things are working out, but researchers are very keen interesting on these things, and they do lot of research and working out how we can, then only. somehow then only they can prevent, they understands this type of attacks this happens. Otherwise I will repeat, if somehow any person who have a bad intention does have knowledge of this type of attacks, we would never know that. At this point of time we would never know that this type of attacks be happen or not. So even how many, we don't know how many of our phones get hacked even at this point of times. Or maybe something, some backdoor might be there in our phones. So many of our India is a big usage of Android phones, and most of the one of the best use and the top user in the internet. So we have a poor privacy programs in our countries. Okay. So I was saying about the ransomware previous sessions, and another thing I have is to pointing out the healthcare security. Maybe many of us many of us never cared about of this healthcare security. So one thing we have to sure that whatever when we go for the hospitals for checking up, for scanning up those details or these images, they might these medical officers or medical or the hospitals may have storing these devices for their future references. So somehow the hospital does have an infrastructure, they have a separate protocol, and they might have opened this protocol into internet. So anybody in the internet can access our private data, like what type of what type of issues that we are facing, what type of medical issue that a person does have. I have seen that some kind of uh, I'm unable to share that report here because of some issues. So it does have some some hospitals details around of their employees, even the scan reports. It is easily available in the internet, but just typing, but just connecting to that particular link, they have opened it up in the internet. So it just happens because they may have misconfigured their this kind of healthcare infrastructure in their in their organizations. That's why they somehow an attacker can able to find out and use that information for further social engineering or attacks or any kind of attacks that may be vulnerable to the victim. And none other than the nuclear, these kinds of very issued sensitive target areas, it is very it is very cautious on these things because but we have the hackers can't able to get into the nuclear power plant inside any core or components of nuclear power plant. That does happens the last time, but the issue was they were able to they were able to target, they were successfully targeted and successfully get into it, but not into the core areas of a nuclear power plant. But this is something that is worries about us. So what is we happen? I will share one of the incident that's happened in Middle East. So it might be happens in everywhere, but it is not. We don't know exactly because companies or countries or companies won't disclose these things because of their disclosing problems. So this is somehow some researchers have found out that attackers might have get into these power plants, or they do have some traces of attackers. Uh, so that's it. So this is the one I do want to talk regarding the critical infrastructure, how the cybersecurity threats affects on the critical infrastructure like an oil rigs or like nuclear power plants or electrical grids, like large electrical grids. So these things, and I will share how the Saudi so the Aramco, one of the joint initiative by the Saudi government and American private sector. I don't know private government, semi-government, and they do have around 60, more than 60 or 70% of total supply of oil in the world. This particular company, so they drilled out most of the oil in the entire world, and they sell it oil to us, it's the petrol and diesel, whatever the oils. So this company is one of the perfect one. So somehow this does happens in 2012. These attacks, some of the technician maybe is an is a small scale technician inside the company. He got a scam mail. He just clicked on a bad link. Like we usually get our links in messages. Mostly we do get some of the links in our phones through messages or through emails. That this has some scam. Mostly we don't do that, but somehow this poor guy has got clicked on that bad link. And what actually the bad link does is somehow some malware injected into the his computer or wherever the workstation he he clicked on the he used it to clicked on that bad links. And you know suddenly the malware works out, and the disappearing files, and it does some problems. So what they have to survive this issue, the entire facility have to shut down the computers. Do you think about it? 35,000 computers has to be shut out, have need to be partially wiped, or should be totally destroyed in spite of a in the fear of a malware they have somehow a poor guy has clicked it. So think about it. Apparently, the company temporarily stopped oil selling to domestic to the areas. And think about it. This was happened in 2012, where the technology has mostly in the appraiser, everybody uses the computers and this type of devices in their activities, organizational activities. And think about it. This is a giant in the oil field. This is the one who supplied oil to the all the governments, is all to the areas in the world. And after 17 days, after only 17 days, they have giving oils. So think about how much oil has to be lost at that time. Maybe it's not lost, but I think excess will be there, right? They usually they drilled out these type of oils, and only after 70 days is they might have to sell this oil to the other countries. So they within that days is they are giving the oil to free to everyone in the Saudi Arabia to uh, to keep that flow. So how this what I have understand is a trillion dollar losses to that company because of a simple bad link on an email. Okay, and the other things that will be uh, you know we be finding out of that we have known that crypto mining, data mining, we heard about of this. Somehow attackers we can't able to see. Somehow we may have feel that our computer gets somehow they're not performing well in the last time itself. They are stucking something. It's not performing. Its performance is somehow we may have think about that our newly computers after some kind of works or some kind of after 1 year or 2 year might be this happens in newly computers also. It somehow becomes very stuck at times, or it's not operative, its processing speed is very low. But think about it, it might happens because the attacker turn your computer into a money making tool. It's a crypto jacking, that is we call it crypto jacking or a crypto miner. You don't know, we don't know whether it is to be a how it had happens. So this also very dangerous because they use our own devices to their own benefit, and we might not know there. So these kind of threats uh, are real. It's not a drama. It's not been seen in the movie. These are happening everywhere. And recently, the IoT devices, something like that, we do have the smart locks or smart whatever the smart synonym and behind. Those are IoT devices, right? So the smart doorbell somehow able to unlocks to the unauthorized person attacker. So he has somehow techniques. Maybe it has some Bluetooth hacking, or it has some kind of Wi-Fi hacking, using that technology, using that knowledge. An infiltrator can able to get into your homes. If your homes are uh, homes installed smart doorbells, smart video cameras is inside the doorbell. These doorbells just have everything. So, and let another than the medical records that we have said before, these are exposed in in these countries, Commonwealth countries like Australia. Thinking about our situation, how we are secure our medical records in our countries. Another area. So I was talking about really in mostly the hardware part here, and the threats that this comes into the hardware, the threats that comes into your IoT devices, the threats that come to you on your personal medical records. So I'm briefly explaining. Maybe some of you may have heard about of these issues, and you know somehow uh, leaked compounds. Many of the we all know that many of our chips are developed and created from China. So what they have used, they might have injected some kind of hardware that is not necessary for that devices. We don't know exactly, right? So we are not the creators. We just bought our laptops or our phones or any other devices, all made from China, and even they positioned somehow uh, an hardware injector, somehow an hardware, a small chip that may the size of a rice grain. So we don't know what is this particular devices, what is this particular components. You can see from the picture itself. So somehow researchers have found out that after only someone uh, discovered these things, how many devices in the entire world may have this hardware injected thing from the developers itself, from the creator itself. So this just happens in the super micro servers that used by I think Amazon, Apple. They use these super micro servers. So they do have an hardware injector, somehow components that intentionally put there to spy on your work, that does have a connection, frequently connected to to attacker servers in China. So these kinds of information, these kinds of things are there. These kinds of threats are there. So we be using all kinds of electronics from China, especially. So we do have this. We don't know how many of our phones may have this kind of injected hardware, small, look like hardware. We don't know that. We only know once we these researchers has exposed these kinds of attacks could happen, and we realize how far these things are going away, how far these securities are there. So that's it. On You can also check it down yourself, this regarding. And another, you know this is some kind of way that there's a lot of different ways as an attacker can do get the secrets. It's not maybe from phone. It might have from your hardware. So this is from Intel chip secrets. So it does may have contains the especially crypto hardware is used for certain kind of encryption. So these kinds of device encryption they might have stored in these kinds of hardwares, and hackers can use them voltages level to higher or lower levels to analyze these kinds of issues. Uh, there are a lot of ways we can't expect. There are a lot of ways an attacker can put a threat on us. So this is some kind of issue that some researchers have vigorously researching on these things. Then only we could able to understand this. So most of our laptops or most of our computers are they do have the Intel Pentium processor, Intel chips. these things. So how we can trust these kinds of devices? Previous on previous slide we could able to find out the chips this contains uncomponent which are not intended, which is intentionally put to track us. And other thing that hackers can use is the voltages that respective to these particular user to give particular uh, for powering up these particular chips can able us to uh, exploit our secrets also. So this is literally a lot of ways we are under threats. and and one other things, this was in 2070. So serious, maybe many of us have HP laptops. So they intentionally admit that they have installed keylogger on their varieties of laptops. So how it is to be effective as, so whatever we typed on the laptop, it might have our username, it might have our secrets, it might have our passwords, it might have our messages. Those are all logged, and these logged are sent into this particular company. So the company do have your details, your passwords, everything, whatever you have typed on this particular. We don't know, certain models are there, certain models of HP models are there. These are intentionally created somehow. Some researchers found that then only they would admit it. Otherwise they will continue the installation of these things in their laptops, and nobody will have an idea how secure we are. And yeah, so now it's only HP. We do have many brands of laptops that we have used. We don't know, somehow it has hacked. We don't know, somehow our logs are or logged or not. That's it. And another thing that we on this day on most of these times we do use is our pointless and card and contactless cards on cards. This can also be tracked, this can also be hacked. So these things is this based on electronics, they do have some kind of a lot of ways is to get into hack it out. So the threats, see the threats level that we have seen as far as here. We do have the threats in our personal devices, mobile phones, laptops, maybe inside our mobile phones or laptops, related to the chips, related to the processors they are using, and other things. Thing we are, the daily life we have used our cash, online cash payment, or these kinds of cash payment, contactless cash payments. So these are under threats. So a threat might found anywhere if they're using these campaigns using any kind of um, new technologies. So one thing I have noticed that many of we as AI or any kind of new NLPs or some kind of new technologies that come, many of the toys are toys that we might have used, the cars or robot toys that are in the market. They talk like human, they talk like, they have some conversation, they do have a conversation like Siri. So these kind of new advanced toys coming to the market, they might have the cameras, they might have the voice recognition systems, they might. So these things really tap our voices, they listen up every time, they might surveillances. So see how things are changed into, and these companies would say that they use these techniques to enrich their technology with more accurate. We all know that using ML or machine learnings, we do require more data to precise our organization systems. But in fact, does it have any security point of view? How we are given these devices, these toys, who authorized to give, who authorized uh, to listen our voices? What if these devices capture our private moments in our life? So how trust we can built on this while we buy a toys from a superstore? How things could be, how the threats are coming out. There are threats surface on these simple device also. We never be thought of this device might have a security threat, cyber security threat, our privacy threats on this particular little bit devices that is useful for our younger generations or the kids. How they are useful for the kids, we never thought so, but somehow the companies are doing it intentionally. And and some attackers from able to find out these issues. They can able us to they can able to exfiltrate these vulnerabilities into our personal lives. This could be happens. We know that internet that we have seen is not really the internet is 1 or 2% of internet. More than that, it's a deep web or dark web is there. And another area, the attackers the researchers have find out that hackers can silently control your Google Home, Alexa, Siri with a laser light. Nowadays, every home, we probably would say about I do have Alexa. My home is controlled by Google Home, and Siri is one of my personal assistant. But somehow it would not. It also not listen up your voices, but it can track you. Even researchers have discovered a clever technique to remote inject inaudible and invisible commands into your voice control devices by shining a laser at the target devices. Let me make an example of this. If I have a device in my home, somehow an attacker from 1 kilometer or within 500 meters away from my home, he can directly inject, he can precisely inject can a laser light. It has a command. It has invisible. It has an this lesson. They so the commands that like the remotely injectable commands. So somehow garage open your garage. So these might have open your car garages. So these the attackers can turn this command into an inaudible voices, inaudible and invisible command. They can create this command, this voice command into a laser light, and this laser light has put into your Google Home or any Google Alexa, and this Alexa could able us to get, they could understand the frequency range. Somehow whatever the technology they might have used, they can able us to understand this is the legitimate command, and they can allow that open together. Somehow an attacker can do that. So this is was discovered by a team of cybersecurity researchers. So these things may have a potential to getting into our home, to getting into our personal lives. So a lot of ways to attack are there. So since we have been using all these kinds of information, all these kinds of devices, so these things are very great potential to our privacy concerns. And next, we nowadays everybody does have Bluetooth speakers. Yeah, it might um, everyday speakers can turn into acoustic cyber weapons. um, and thus it's if it is controlled, an attacker can able to emit harmful sounds, that a particular frequency sounds that is harmful for the humans. An attacker can able to somehow infiltrate your speakers and turn that speakers into acoustic cyber weapons. So it doesn't mean no other missiles, no other guns needed for to kill a person or to infiltrate a person. These things could be happen. The researchers finding out it. There are a lot of things that is not founded out, but there are some researchers that are interested in this kind of attacks. They do research these things and they excavated these things, and then only we could understand this kind of things, this kind of threats that we can see in our daily lives. And another area I do want to more emphasize on the medical devices. So since this is some kind of a pacemaker, it's electronic devices. It works somehow with some frequency range. It connect back to then only it would help to rhythmic proper rhythmic of our heart or some kind. So if a person has this kind of is they're using this kind of pacemakers or medical devices inbuilt in their bodies and an attacker can able to infiltrate him by using a certain kind of frequencies that has a terrible impact on these kinds of devices. So there are a lot of ways we can exfiltrate these kinds of devices. And we do know that our hospital beds nowadays are modernized and all connected with different kinds of electronics, and they do have connecting to the internet or to the other to the they do capture our everyday life, to the capture our medical records, medical issues, and they transfer to the either the physician's mobile phones, like and advanced technologies are there in the operation theater and everything, so that robot surgeries are done by robots. If it is connected somehow connected to internet, by means might have it has an so these kinds of devices might have an authority from surgeon, or somehow an attacker can able to hack into surgeon accounts, or a physician's account, or somehow he can able to control the devices. There's a lot of issues are there regarding this thing also. So so another area I would love to give you about the SIM cards, how the our SIM cards, it's not our mobile phones, how our SIM cards are vulnerable to remote SIM jack attacks. So this is kind of vulnerability that could and honestly, our country is not in this attack area. Some countries they do use these kinds of some kind of technologies. They do have some kind of what. So what I would describe how these attacks have happened. You will get a common message. You will get a little bit small message from the SIM provider. Maybe an attacker send you some commands. That commands can understand only by the SIM. So after if I am attacker, somehow I can send you a symbol command as a message into your phone. I can take a control of your phone using this vulnerability. And you know, and we do have Chinese hackers compromise our telecom servers to spy on SMS messages. And moreover that, we do have a lot of problems most of the Chinese phones are used by Indians. We do have a lot of branches like Vivo, like Xiaomi. So we don't know what kind of attack threats they have put into that phones. So our I think 1 or 2 months before, provide a good provider, I think Vivo, I don't know exact company names, is they exposed the user details around 2 or 3 million user details, Indian user details. They exposed somehow an attacker exposed user details, sensitive details these phone providers does have. So actually we don't know how they are good in hackers. They could able to infiltrate. They are the creators of the servers. Is somehow I have in one of the last slide I pointed out it, some hardware injections that had happened. Somehow say they have injected this hardware and they can able to, we don't know our phones are injected. Is any kind of trackable things are there? Is any kind of, and these especially these phones what I have seen, they do have a custom application. They have a lot of custom application. We don't know, it cannot be deleted, I think. I'm not using any kind of this phone, so deleted, but these custom apps we don't know the service permissions of these custom apps, and how this custom whether we these custom apps are spying on us or not. And maybe you may have heard about of Snowden. So he discloses the NSA or the government of American government says spying on their person, their citizens. So he was also from the a government official, and one of the interview with Guardian. So Guardian has, I think, introduced his disclosing issues, and one of the interview he made when the Guardian people approached him, he said he says to the Guardian people, please do kept your phones in the fridge. So he kept all the phones from the Guardian people in his apartment fridge refrigerator. Why? He feared out even even the phone is switched off. Even the phone is switched off. May they have ability to may NSA have the ability to tap the calls and tap where this person is located. He can find out. The government can find out and infiltrate him. So he somehow designs uh, to neglect these radio signals. So even we do have to know that, I think, I don't know exactly have the great information, but I would say that even our phones are turned switched off, but the radio signals, the phone will connect to our radio signal to the networks near to us. So it would not stop the connecting. It will so in that way a person, a attacker or any government person can surveillance where this person does have. So I don't know the authenticity of this, but I would strongly agree that nowadays is anything could happen. So somehow he designs a particular kind of devices that has neglecting the radios signals to capture him, to capture his locations. And so this is one of the kind of attacks that could happen in the 4G LTE networks. Hackers can spy, track, spoof, spam. So this is great. This is kind of thing. It's a complex, but many of may and it is happened, and our 4G networks can be hacked. LTE network can be hacked from the SS7 protocols. They do in case of telecom networks, they do have a lot of information, a lot of guys who are researching on it. We do have great researchers from India also. They do have more researching on these things. But one thing I'm sure, these things can be hackable. And if any attackers have the pointing out, they can spy on us, they can track on us, they can spoof on us, they can spam on us. And one of the serious things I do want to know, so we never be thought of how how well, if these kinds of devices, if these kinds of, we may have seen that Tesla can be hackable, cars can be hackable. Yeah, that's authenticity. How things, these predators can be hackable. What if somehow we do have a lot of aircrafts, or somehow we do have fighter jets? How in a combat times how in a combat times is somehow some countries the enemy country can be able to hack into this kind of fighter jets. It turned them to a weapon against themselves, right? So these are serious vulnerabilities. So nowadays, recently I have found out the DARPA, those who developed some kind of like DRDO in India, from USA, DARPA also developing some kind of tool, some kind of weapons for their mass destructions. They do also disclose the bug bounty programs on their hardwares. So they figure it out. Everybody, because uh, in us, in the many of the researchers, the prominent researchers are there. They might not want into get work into a company, but they are more interesting to the bug hunting and these kinds of defensive areas. They would give out the million amount of dollars to them if they found out some critical issues. So this is some kind of critical issues somewhere they have found out on F-15 fighter jets. I don't know how many what if in the case of our aircrafts or fighter jets this happens, and it would impact badly on us. So the threats are not limited to any areas. The threats are leveraging whenever new technology, new area comes into the picture. So this was around an old thing, a decade old. The national America's NSA have strategic partnership with 80 major global corporation. You know, who you may have think about HP, that we were saying that they were they were using this kind of keyloggers in their laptops. And now you got the point. Who behind these kinds of things? Microsoft, Intel, Verizon, IBM, Qualcomm. Do didn't I mention you the Qualcomm chips before? So NSA do have some kind of partnerships to exfiltrate not only the people, everybody does have. And just for a moment, just for 1 minute, please. Okay. Um, so these are the NSA strategic partnerships with the different kinds of hardware platforms, operating systems, application software, security hardware. They do have partnerships, and you know they can infiltrate our data, not only the USA personal data, everybody data who uses these kinds of information. And I do want to give you some information about the Great Hack. Maybe many of you might have seen this Netflix series. I somehow has interested in it because this is related to the privacy, uh, but the least concern that we Indians are care about it. That is the privacy, our own privacy. We don't have any kind of uh, privacy concerns, or the privacy, some kind of online privacy, some kind of uh, a legal issue in countries like US or European Union, but we don't have that kind of issues here. So, and first, did you think about it? Many of our apps or whatever, how they want, whatever the services that they're pointing out, but somehow they are keeping our data and then took control to us. So, I maybe many of you may have, you know we be thinking out many of the ML programs or any softwares does have this machine learning capabilities is there would identify us, our data, our behavior, our then they would take over controls. So this does happen, this really happens in the last elections in USA. So Cambridge Analytica, a firm sparked the greatest privacy of US citizens. Around, I don't know, a lot of amount of around millions of their users in Facebook. This particular third party tool able to uh, able to identify uh, every US citizens, their data. They do have, they this particular tool in Cambridge Analytica's tool can able to capture around 500 5,000 data set or data points for a single person, for a single US citizen. They could capture about it. Maybe it just contains his likes, his interest, his way of life. What, I don't know how many data they could be able to, maybe able to, you can count it up from 5,000 data is it's a complete picture of a person. And so identify his political view, and reporting him into the news, the threats that does happen in the that does happens to change his political behavior. Because at that times is at the time of election, these guys might have think about, okay, whatever I have followed, they might have some problems now these times is. So they don't have might a really problem, but the problem is on the social network. These companies has put effort to change the mindset of the people. So whatever we are talking, whatever we are, you know our complete nowadays, our complete life is on the internet. So everybody could understand is what a person really through the internet. And companies are nowadays they're focusing uh, and they're focusing on ads, advertising with the needs of the youth, or they could use anything. So but this happens, this campaign this happens uh, for for getting a rule of a government of a country which has the highest democratic values. So this is very serious issues, because they don't hack down, they just pointed out, they just captured our data. So it's illegal, and it's illegal data, and they use these data to change our behavior, to change our mind, and they control our mind to what we have to do. So these things has happened nowadays is everywhere. So it's not one Cambridge Analytica, it's a lot of other firms are doing it, a lot of companies are doing it in respective of their own. We don't know. So I was giving a hint on this thing because we have a privacy awakening, we should have a privacy awakening at this stage also. So nowadays we are on the verge of a epidemic, we are in a currently on an epidemic situation, and everything whatever our life is mainly depend upon the internet through our education, our trade, our business is value into this internet. But we should have system more care about our privacy, should not be compromised. So I just made a great. It's not that much great, but we do have some kind of hack. This happens in India also. So you maybe you guys may familiar with this person. A society would be called as Elliot Anderson. He's a French researcher. He usually reports some bugs in our government applications. So this was a detail of some of the findings as he has made on Aadhaar applications. So he could able to find out. You can see here. You could able to find out the database password somehow. So this app does might have uh, they might have contains any sensitive data, but what is he was trying to do, because of his involvement in these kinds of hacking, in these kinds of exposing the issues on our government apps. The government has taken some more strict on nowadays, more strict on these kinds of developing or these kinds of security. So this will be helping us out. So somehow this person has exposed this thing to the government. If somebody is not exposing these data, how could he come? So like what I mentioned the first time, like the DigiLocker issue. Similarly, the like Emada, the DigiLocker has some issues of, it does have a 3.5 billion documents, and any attacker can able to access that. Okay, so the government has taken care of these things nowadays. They should have to protect the privacy issues. They are enforcing those strict and enforcing areas in these kinds of privacy matters on us. So what I'm trying to do, see the threats this happens in front of our eyes, in front of our fingertips, in our mobile phones, in our personal lives, in our privacy matters. So I would so in order to do that, in order to so this is the threats that I want us to clearly give an idea about the variety of threats that I have shared here, from your hardware devices, from your input devices, from the medical data to your privacies, to personal data. Everything is under can be hackable and under a great security threat. And so I do enforce you, I do enforce you guys should have to be learn all these techniques, all these methodologies, defensive methodologies, and create your own communities in your college, so you can participate, or the minded people might have participate in kinds of these this is some of the community that I have encountered. Team Bios is one of the greatest community. So they are the students is from Amrita University, Kerala. They do have multiple title in the CTF, in the international CTF competitions. So, and you can go through the talks, conferences, and all these we have discussed before the last time. I just only mention you to go through all these things, and you should have to be a great at least a learning experiences over the privacy issues, and you should have to create your own a security habit, not to giving you not to be under any kind of a spear phishing attacks. You should have to be more care on any kind of exposing your sensitive data in the internet. So these things you should have to be you should enforce the communities, and you should enforce these kinds of information to your into your life also, into others life also. That's all what I have thinking. Thank you all. If you have any questions, we can sort it out now.
Sir, stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
Uh, Thank you, Hasanul, for very nice session. A very wonderful session it is. And your session transforms the presentation from simple lecture into clear learning experience. So it was really enlightening us. You have rightly mentioned that how carefully we should use our social networking accounts and our electronic devices that are very essential part of our day-to-day life. And new things we learn about our day-to-day life that we are using from your lecture today, that is how unnecessary electronic devices injected on the motherboards of our machine, and it is really a threat for us. So there are plenty of participants are interested to ask questions. If you allow me to ask some of few questions.
Yeah,
One
go
of-
ahead. Go ahead.
yes. So one of the participants would like to ask question. He's Mr. Saurabh Patil from London. Okay, so uh, over to Saurabh Patil.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Saurabh.
Hello, Mr. Hassanal.
Yes.
It was nice to have an informative session from you. It helped us a lot for understanding the things about the cybersecurity. And I have a question that how do we stay current on the threat landscape?
Uh, can you repeat the question one more?
How do we stay current on the cyber threat landscape?
How do we stay current cybersecurity threats landscapes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So from our understandings, so we don't have really we don't know really where the threats will be there. So so throughout my session, you could be able to see that any devices, any electronic devices that we will be using, for a personal or for our home usages, these kinds of devices can be, and hackers can be used to get into our personal lives or any kind of issues, and it would come from what would I say, from a like consumer areas, and into the large industrial scapes, like critical infrastructure areas, and yeah, and our social network areas, and moreover, a personal knowledge means the social engineering aspects. So what I have seen the trend, many of the large data breaches or any kind of we do have these critical infrastructures. They are uh, they are air gapped systems. We can't directly inject any malware or any kind of from an internet. We can't directly get into that thing. So it does require a third person, a person involvement, maybe a poor fellow from administrative. He doesn't have any knowledgeable or any training knowledgeable in the cybersecurity, that he has to put lingo, he has to click on that particular language. He doesn't have to differentiate whether these links he had got in his emails have a valid or a scam links. So what I'm trying to say is mainly uh, a knowledge in a person, at least a security knowledge in a person, at least threat knowledge, whatever you mentioned, the threat. Basically, I would suggest that has to an impact, first impact. So we should have an security habit. We should have to take care in our daily lives. So then only we can defend the threats that coming in future.
Okay.
Okay.
So as per you said before, you the in today's life, the mobile phones which we use can be hacked, and things can be hacked from laptop and things. So there are a lot of people who use mobile phones and they don't have complete idea about cybersecurity or internet. If some message pops up like just for okay, they just randomly click okay, and which can cause them hack. So how can we prevent that thing?
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. So uh, day by day, new techniques are evolving. So if I found out, as somehow researcher found out, so these issues, and the attack, and the companies, like what I'm trying to say. So if a WhatsApp app, most of our we are using out. So if any kind of vulnerabilities are coming out, so these companies are enforcing mitigations whenever a researcher found out these issues. So as a at least no get knowledge on regarding this thing. We should not say that we have to completely avoid the phones, because as it's daily, it's kind of a daily habit in our daily life. So we should have to care a little bit, get at least a common sense knowledge in these areas. So what it is really. So I do have seen many of these issues. People, they don't have any great background in security. They might get calls from the people would say, ask their OTP or any kind of these should have been neglected. So and our from any calls from banks or related stuff, this should have to be, they might have to taken care of these things. If any suspicious activity, if they found out, they can directly go to the nearby like cyber police. So they can directly contact them, they could get help from them.
Also, one more thing. You are aware about the black hole attack,
Black
right?
hole attack.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a black hole internet attack. Basically, it's a loss of data. So if such kind of attack is being performed on the system, what can we do? Like what is the step to be taken in such situation?
It's regarding the forensics of where our data are gone, like this you had mentioned.
Yeah,
Or
exactly. It's like that. It's just like a black hole of the Earth. The data is gone. It's been missing from the system. Like it's been sent from the sender, but it's not received to the receiver end, and it's not in the line. It's just missing it somewhere.
as an attack, as a victim, what I am seeing is most of the cases is similar like ransomware attacks is the person's data get encrypted by an attacker, and he has to give the ransom amount to the attacker in order to get the data back.
Exactly.
So otherwise, is in that areas is if a personal device is there, if it doesn't it doesn't make much impact, but see some kind of, if a company that a company is if a company documents, or company, if a particular organization or a particular certain organization documents get these kinds of ransomware, their device ransomware, they have to pay a lot. So
Exactly.
because there is no backup for that one, so
So in such situation, what can be precaution that we can take? Being if you are in a big company, what precautions can you take it?
so in a big companies we do have a forensic people, and these kinds of people, they do have better knowledge how we can retrieve those data, and aware of that. Every company, every organization, for this kind of work, they do have create a multiple backups in order to mitigate these kind of issues. So they might have felt some kind of, they would be foreseen these kinds of issues. So they would only want us to in more of their data are nowadays is in the cloud. So they do have given a protection on these things. So, and companies should have just to give a basic training to the all the employees they so regarding the issues nowadays is every companies has doing the training regarding the spear phishing attacks. This is the common attacks is everybody does do. So nowadays every company does have their own inline spear phishing attacks and spear phishing trainings is given out for the trainers. So that's the best issues. And in order to get the data backups is, you should have to be more care on backups were there, an organization should be backups were there, but you know encryption, once it is encrypted, it's hard to decrypt it.
Uh,
Okay.
Thank you, Husinul, for answering the questions by giving various examples. Saurabh, I hope your questions are answered and anticipated well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Uh,
Great
uh,
answer.
Okay, thank
Husinul,
you for
I will ask three more questions to you. Can I?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, a very vital question. Probably every participant is waiting for answer of this question. The question is, government suggests us to keep all our educational documents in DigiLocker, but you said that there is threat to DigiLocker. How secure are our documents there?
So if some kinds of researcher, some kind of ethical hacker has found out these kinds of issue, so I think the cert in is an organization who take care of all these kinds of issues. So they acknowledge the issues. So they would say about they are currently they are mitigated these issues. So for I won't suggest in I don't have a much explanation what we can do on these things, but one thing I could say to the no to that government should uh, you know uh, should have us to give an opportunity for ethical hackers to finding out the issue related with the government services, so they could find out issues, and government can also mitigate these issues before before these applications are coming into the picture, or before these coming applications are in the production, or either they can now even the government's Arogya Setu app does have, they created a bug bounty programs, so hackers from all over the world can participate in that, and they can find out the issues, and they can report that issues to the government, and the government mitigated these issues. So these things is we can mitigated.
Yes, thank you. Uh, Another interesting questions for you, that is from Pranav Menon. Question is, what kind of precautions and actions can be taken against the cyber criminals?
Cyber criminals.
Yeah, what kind of precautions and actions can be taken against the cyber criminals?
So first one, if you found out any suspicious activity, if you found out suspicious activity, on your device, on your premises, any kind of, so you should have this to, so you should have this to, you know, uh, go to the cyber police if they do, and you should have to report these cases to the cyber polices first, and you should have to get a basic understandings how these attacks comes on. Like we do, I usually have found out some, we got some false calls from for different numbers, unknown numbers, and they would say this is our account number, you should have access to, please do give our ATM informations or ATM card number or OTP that may have sent to you. So a bank never ever asks your uh, credentials or your ATM PIN card number or OTP number or even the CVV number. They would never ask about these things. So first get knowledge. If anyone asks for these things, you should have to notify this to the cyber criminal polices or there.
Yes. So another question from Atharva Khadse. The question is, which is the best language used for ethical hacking?
There is no language for ethical hacking at all. So if you know some kind of, this is a great question. So many of we think about, does it require any kind of languages, does it require any kind of scripting? So I would say that it doesn't require anything. But if you do have a at least a knowledgeable in, you know some kind of languages, it would be very useful. So I would say, but when you have, when a person getting to the area of penetration testing, he might have encounter with web application and mobile application. There we can see that HTML, we could able different kinds of libraries, Java scripts or Java. So if that person has an idea about these kinds of languages, he can perform well. That's it.
Yes. One question. This is my question. So, how the general user come to know that the hardware is injected, it is unwanted in his motherboard or anywhere in his electronic device?
You should have access to break the hardware and look over it. That's only way. That's only the way the researchers have found it.
Yes.
Because somehow these super micro servers, they were suspicious because of some connection does happen, some connection to the Chinese servers. They have found out some data, they found out that internal team found out some data. They don't know what is it is, where
Yes.
this data comes out, how this data is pushing out. So the team, the testing, I don't know, they might hire the researchers or they might hire the professionals to do the test. So somehow this person does know, some of these researchers know uh, uncommon component in the board.
Yes.
Okay, we do know that in our circuit board, our PC board, we minimize the BC board at most, right?
Mhm.
To make it as a comfortable. So somehow they didn't understand this particular component and what is usage, and they tries out their PCB. Then they found out that this is unwanted in this particular component, and they use it. They find out this is the issue. The creators have put it intentionally.
Yes. Uh, this is all about the questions. I really appreciate you for taking the time to answering all the questions in very well manner. Now I request Professor Ankush Utke for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil Wankade, sir. I'm honored and lucky to have the opportunity to give the vote of thanks. On behalf of MCT's Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, I would like to thank our today's eminent speaker, Mr. Hasinul Sanoop. Thank you, sir, for giving excellent coverage to cybersecurity and the opportunities in this domain in the morning session and the cybersecurity threats in this session. It was really the informative session. I'm sure your knowledge gaining session will surely help all the participants in the coming days. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and giving us your valuable time. I would also like to thank all the participants for attending a session in such a great number. Thank you all. I request all the participants to fill the feedback form shared on the Telegram group. Dear participants, before ending the day one, I would like to announce that tomorrow's session will be conducted by Mr. Soumil Kandadia, cybersecurity analyst at Ridgeback Network Defense. His session is on cybersecurity in the current world with respect to the framework based on NIST and cyber kill chain. So see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Till then, goodbye. Take care.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, team.
Yes.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir.
Bye.
I request host to end the meeting.